All right, Catullus V serves not only as an excellent Latin poem in its own right, but also as a great introduction to the uses of the subjunctive mood of the verb. So note, Catullus begins here with vivamus. The indicative form of this verb, vivimus, simply means we live. But if you look carefully, the vowel at the middle of the word there, the characteristic vowel, has changed from the I, which is characteristic of the third conjugation's indicative, to an A. If you remember the mnemonic, we beat a friar, you'll note that the A there corresponds to the third conjugation. So vivamus. Here, this is used as a hortatory subjunctive. The hortatory subjunctive is less strong than the imperative. So you might note that you could simply tell someone, live, but by phrasing it with the subjunctive, as a hortatory subjunctive, let us live, there's no strict and unbending command implied. It's an exhortation or an encouragement, right? So the best translation here would be let us love, or let us live, sorry. And then, of course, you have atque amemus. The same thing has happened. If you think back to your mnemonic, we beat a friar, the E is characteristic of the change in the subjunctive, which occurs for the first conjugation. Right? So the basic form amamos would mean simply we love. But amemos can have a range of different significations. Here, because it's a hortatory subjunctive, you'd want to say, let us love. Okay? Catullus here uses a triad of verbs with vivamus, amemos, and aestimemos. Note that because amemos and aestimemos are both first conjugation verbs, they both, in the subjunctive, have this vowel change to an E. So it's a triad of verbs of things that he and Lesbia are supposed to be doing. All right, so he says, vivamus mea lesbia atquamemus, rumoresque senum severiorum omnes, unius aestimemos assis. Catullus does a few significant things here. One is the grouping into threes is characteristic not just of Latin poetry, but of Latin prose as well. The Romans really liked groupings of threes, as we do still in English. You'll also note that by using severiorum, the comparative form of the adjective severus, he implies an exceptional amount of severity on the part of the senum, of the old men. All right, you'll see here that the rumores goes here with omnes. When you begin reading Latin poetry, you'll want to remember that the words which go together will not necessarily, and in fact quite often are not, in the same lines. All right, this is why it's more important than ever to think about things like subject-adjective agreement, etc., etc. So rumores omnes, these are going to be the direct object of your verb aestimemos. Let us value rumores omnes, etc., etc. Here, what Catullus does, is very clever, is he juxtaposes omnes and unius, right? So all of them are going to be set at unius assis, 1 penny, okay? Because of Latin's flexible word order, poets love to do these kinds of things. The reason that rumores and omnes aren't simply jammed together has partly to do with the dramatic effect that Catullus wants to create by joining omnes all with unius, 1, right? To indicate just how little they're going to value all the rumors of the old men. Okay? Note that this phrase, unius assis, is in highfalutin grammar terms referred to as the genitive of price or the genitive of value. Let us value them at 1 penny. Or as 1 penny. Okay, the next line, soles occidere et redire possunt, this is self-contained. It expresses a full unit of sense, and so you have soles occidere et redire possunt. Both occidere and redire are dependent on possunt. These are complementary infinitives. Soles in the plural is a poetic usage. Catullus does not have any illusions about the nature of astronomical phenomena. He realizes that it's the same sun. The idea is to emphasize the constant recurrence of this event, occidere et redire. They are able to fall and to return. Okay. You'll also note that the plural here, soles, will be contrasted later to the nox una, the one night. The other thing you'll want to note about this particular verb occidere is that it can easily be confused if you're looking through the dictionary for another verb which looks almost identical. Its forms are occido, occidere, occidi, occisus, and that one means to slay or to kill. Here, you obviously do not want to suggest that the sons are able to kill. The sons are able to fall. The principal parts for that are occidere, occido, occidere, occidi, occasus. Right? So the next line is again self-contained. He says nox est, I was skipping a line here. He says nobis cum semel occidit brevis lux. That's not self-contained. The nobis is actually going to be construed with dormienda. This phrase, this adjective dormienda, is a gerundive, and it has the force of necessity, is to be slept or must be slept, and then the dative is used for the agent with this. So by us, one night must be slept. But anyway, going back to nobis, you have nobis. And then cum semel occidit brevis lux. This is effectively a condition or a temporal statement. Cum semel occidit, when once and for all, the brevis lux occidit. Note that this is the same verb that you had in the infinitive up here, occidere, to fall, when it has fallen, occidit, right? And note that the lux, the light, is described as brevis. Nox est perpetua una dormienda. One night, and not just one night, but one perpetua nox, one perpetual night, dormienda est, is to be slept or must be slept. Catullus then moves on to this. Note he conjugates himself out of the subjunctive mood and into the imperative mood to emphasize the urgency of the matter. He says, "Da mi basia milla den decentum, den mille altera den secunda centum," etc., etc. All right. And the reason he goes on in this way is not just to emphasize the urgency of their love, but also to create a heightened and rapid movement in the poem to make it harder to keep track of the numbers here for the listener, right? If, however, you're reading this slowly, it's easy enough to keep an account of the 1,000, the 100, another 1,000, a second 100, and then all the way up to another 1,000, and then 100. Right? So you've got 3,300 here. But then he says, "Den, then, cum milia multa fecerimus." This is a rarely encountered form for most Latin students. This is a future perfect, when we will have, right? Cum milia multa fecerimus. He says, conturbabimus illa. We'll mix them up. The illa here is a neuter plural accusative because it needs to agree with basia, right? Which is also a neuter plural accusative up there. So we will mix them up. Catullus wants you to imagine that these kisses have been almost recorded, or that an account has been kept up until this point, if you were able to follow what he was saying in his rapid exhortations. And now that the account is set up, they're gonna mix them up for one particular purpose, and that is ne sciamus. This is, you'll note, a subjunctive verb. Think back again to your mnemonic, we beat a friar. This ia is characteristic of the fourth conjugation's present subjunctive. Right? Ne sciamus. Remember that negative purpose in Latin will be expressed with this word ne. Positive purpose will be expressed with ut. Right? So ne sciamus, so that we don't know. Right? Out, or ne. So, and again, you're going to have a negative purpose clause, so that this quis here is shortened from aliquis. After forms like cum, num, nisi, ne, you'll have aliquis or aliquid shortened to quis or quid. Right? So ne quis, ne aliquis, so that no one, right? And no one who's described as malus, no one bad, invidere possit, Possit, you'll see, is the present subjunctive of potest. Again, this needs to be subjunctive verb to work with ne in a negative purpose clause, so that no one might be able or could be able invidere. Literally, if you think about the verb invidere, it means in videre, to look upon. And this has to do with the notion of the old evil eye superstition, to curse someone with your eye. Right? And the quis malus is presumably one of the senum severiorum, these old men with their censorious attitudes. Right? So we will mix them up so that we don't know, or so that no evil man could envy us or look upon us when cum tantum sciat esse basiorum. Here, tantum is used as a neuter accusative singular, and it is part of a construction known as the partitive genitive. You have when he knows, sciat, tantum esse, that there is so much or such a great amount, basiorum, of kisses. Here, with a partitive genitive, typically you'll have a neuter singular representing a part, and then a genitive plural of the thing involved, right? So here, tantum basiorum, so many, or so much, sorry, of kisses. The reason here that sciat is in the subjunctive doesn't have to do with its use in the clause. You could, in standard Latin, have cum scit, when he knows, but the reason it's in the subjunctive is based on attraction, because it's, in a sense, dependent upon this purpose clause. The verb just gets attracted into the subjunctive because the subjunctive was just used. But there's no grammatical necessity for the subjunctive being used here. So you can translate this simply as when he knows that there is such a great amount of kisses. All right. Hopefully that has cleared up some of the Catullus V. I know that I've introduced this rather soon to you guys, and I hope that the challenge of the Latin is actually an invitation to study harder rather than a suggestion that you should throw your hands up in despair.